Thanks for joining us. Today, our guest is the Honorable Miami-Dade County Commissioner Eileen Higgins. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. I'm so delighted that you're here. And I just, for our viewers, and thank you for joining us, I want to go over some things. First, you're a mechanical engineer?
Yeah.
And you went to University of Mexico, and you got your degree in mechanical engineering. And did you really don work?
Yes.
What do you call that?
It's a jumpsuit, I
jumpsuit.
guess. My very first job, it was a baby blue jumpsuit. Let me be very specific, with your steel-toed boots. And
you got that picture, guys?
And a hard hat, yellow. And yeah, my first job was in Houston, Texas, in a big old chemical plant. It was hot as can be. And there were no ladies' restrooms, so we had to adapt.
So there you are, from way back, not too many years, but from way back, she's been fighting for the rights of everybody.
Exactly. Right. Everyone should be able to go to the bathroom, including me.
Then you said, okay, I'm going to go get my MBA. You went to Cornell?
I did. I went to Cornell, which was a shock. I was a girl from New Mexico, and I had never really seen rain. So moving to Ithaca was quite something. But it was a great place to be, small, and I still formed lifelong friendships there in the business school. So it's a really great program, great place to be.
So a couple of years after that, we don't know how many, but
yes.
in the mid 2000s, you went to the Belize, and you became their person in charge of the Peace Corps.
Yes, I was I had been working in the private sector for 20 years or ish. And then went to become the director of the Peace Corps in Belize. I felt like it was a time in my life that I was ready to give back and not just completely work in the private sector. And I was lucky enough to get to serve in the Peace Corps. It was it probably was the best job of my life, transformational. And that was the first time my entire focus was on lifting people out of poverty. I learned a lot. It was a wonderful experience.
When did you recognize, not just vocalize, but recognize you wanted to be involved in helping people like that?
It was long before I made the pivot there. I had the opportunity over my career. I was getting, you work hard, you get promoted. And as you do and you gain skills, I was asked to serve on a number of boards of not-for-profits. And because a lot of my work in the early part of my career was in the developing world, Africa, Latin America, parts of Asia, I was serving on the boards and as an advisor to a number of not-for-profits that were working really in developing countries on the very poor and lifting them out of poverty. And that's when I thought maybe I could do this on a more permanent basis. And that's how I ended up pivoting to public service.
So when you made that decision, you said, I'm going to go do that. Did you have a sense of fulfillment? What was it that you said, this is the right move?
Yes. Okay. I'll tell you this. I had a woman who was, all of us, our boss at one of the companies I worked for had a professional coach that used to talk to all of us, mostly because he didn't like coaching us himself. And this woman asked me a question. She gave me an exercise, and you have to go home and write your own obituary. And you have to look at it, and you have to see if you like everything that's on it. And if you don't, what are the things you wish would be in your obituary? And she advised you to get your act together to get started working on that.
So when you started writing that, and it's a great exercise, when you started writing that, all right, about that dash that's in the middle of the beginning and the end, did you, for the first time, become aware of some things? Or is it just sort of sitting there and it just flowed?
I think it was sitting there and it just flowed, because at this point in time, I was at the peak of my professional career, right? As an engineer, as a manager, I was managing very large divisions of Fortune 500 companies. And on my nights and weekends, and maybe every now and then take a week, I was doing some do-gooding stuff. And I just began to realize that I would like a better balance of that over the course of my life. And that's how I ended up pivoting and going to work for the Peace Corps and living in a beautiful place where the electricity was sometimes on and sometimes not on, and my life.
So we ask people, what is success to them? And as they wonder, I said, remember, there's Mother Teresa and there's Jeff Bezos and everything in between. So you found the success model for you.
Yes, it's kind of in the middle. I can't imagine being Jeff, and I really am never going to be good enough to be Mother Teresa.
So here it is, 2015, 16, 17. there's going to be some seats that might be open on the Miami-Dade County Commission. And then at some point prior to 2018, you said, okay, I want to run, all right,
Yes.
for District 5. Tell us about that moment when you said, I'm going to do that.
Well, I knew that I wanted to be of service. As I moved to Miami, I began to get more and more involved in my neighborhood association, in criminal justice causes, social justice causes. And I got tired of just always sitting in the pit talking there. I thought, well, maybe it'd be nice to be one of the decision makers driving policy. And it was definitely a long shot. But I had nothing to lose. I wasn't a county commissioner when I ran. What's the worst that happened? I'm not a county commissioner at the end. And we put together a really good team, a really good strategy. It was very grassroots. There were no tree tops in the first campaign. It was all about people at their doors in the streets. And they took a chance on me as someone different. And I promised them that I would look at issues in a different manner, because we can keep electing the same people and the same families over and over again. I mean, that's an option. But we have an affordable housing crisis. Well, guess what? They've been in charge during the whole affordable housing crisis. We don't have public transportation that works. Well, guess what? They've been in charge during the public transportation crisis. So I said, you could take a chance on me. I will try to work on those issues and do it with a different lens, because I do come from this private sector background with this public service lens from the Peace Corps. And I always tell people I have two personalities. I know we have to drive the top end of the economy, right?
Yes.
But I don't want to leave people behind while we are doing it.
Yes, certainly the vaccination showed that there are at least two different segments of society. So you ran in 2018.
Yep.
You were elected to fill the unfulfilled term, and then you ran again in 2020.
Yes, so I got elected or re-elected in November.
Okay, so your District 5 includes parts of Miami Beach, parts of Miami, Little Havana, Shenandoah, right?
Yep, downtown, Brickell, Little Havana, the beach. I have the best district for anyone that's listening.
All right, so there's obviously we have a major transportation issue in Dade County, which was 10 years in the works, as those fellows downtown, in deference to my associates, my friends, that stiffed all of us down here of $1 billion+ by not spending the money that was appropriate. But it's a new day, right? And we see and we hope that it moves forward on transportation. But let's talk about sea rise. And for the people on Brickell Avenue, and my son lives down that area. No, Dad, it's flooded. All right. He lived on Miami Beach prior to that. And so when we look at this challenge that is there, what is the county commission going to do about sea rise and about the septic tanks, 120,000 more or less, that are here?
Well, one of the things that we did do at the county is we did a comprehensive analysis of every septic tank that has not yet been converted to a real sewage system. And then the next thing we did was prioritize those, right? Because there's thousands of those. It's almost a $4 billion problem to convert all of those. But the reality is we have some tanks that are closer to the water level, some that are older. And the next level is Water and Sewer did an analysis of what are the tanks that are most at risk. Right now, the Florida legislature, and we have to get a little of that money allocated to us here, but they did allocate some money, quite a chunk of money, to do some septic to sewer conversion. And we are working very hard up in Washington with our congressional reps and our senators to see if we can also begin to bring down some of that septic to sewer money in the infrastructure bill that is part of it. And then right now we're also analyzing the American Rescue Plan money can be used for water and sewer upgrades, particularly when it's around the Safe Drinking Water and Clean Drinking Water Act. So there is still the analysis going on about how we could deploy that. The reality is we got to make this change. And we have some really committed commissioners on this. And let me just give a shout out to Commissioner Rebecca Sosa, who started the Biscayne Bay Task Force and is one of the reasons, along with our mayor, that we have a chief bay officer. And
who is that? Give her a plug.
Irella.
There you go.
Okay, everybody knows her. And so we have, it's interesting. It's like the mayor, Rebecca Sosa, Irella Begay. We got a lot of women out there protecting the water of this county.
By the way, Irella was she, I'm not sure she knows this, but she is actually really responsible for where we are here because a couple of years ago, she started Miami View. Michael, come along for the ride.
There you
All right.
go.
So it was really wonderful.
And things like that. So for me, example, one of the things that I've done around the Bay is I passed recently, it went into effect May 15th, the strictest fertilizer ordinance in the state of Florida. And it was a lot of work negotiating with the golf course industry, negotiating with the turf industry, negotiating with the fertilizer industry. But right now in Florida, you and I should not be using fertilizer during the rainy season, because if we put fertilizer on our lawn and it rains in the afternoon, essentially we're sending that fertilizer directly into the bay where we are fertilizing algae. And when we have those algae blooms, they are sucking the oxygen out of the bay and they are killing our fish. So peeps, stop fertilizing this summer.
So certainly the average citizen needs to have some education in that arena about, it's like why you shouldn't do it then. And there are enough people that have recycled and do those things that they might go along with it. Getting back, if we could, to the sewage system, the figure that you came up with, did that include replacing the pipes that would take the sewage replace the septic tank, or is that a separate item?
I believe that includes that, but don't quote me on that. I can always check.
I didn't quote her. She just said it though.
I believe. Right.
So let's talk about the $27 million is being spent to improve Flagler Street area.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Well, downtown, as anyone that goes there realizes, it's sort of this last area of the historic heart of Miami that is in complete disrepair. We have lots of empty storefronts. Flagler Street, which used to be our main drag, has been in need of a facelift probably for 2 to 3 decades. So this project, we broke ground. It's going very well. Flagler Street's going to be converted in a beautiful festival-style street. Imagine it European style. The sidewalks will be the same side of the street. We'll be able to close it for activities. Lots of green space, lots of outdoor dining space. It's a collaborative project between the city of Miami and the county. We're both spending plenty of money to do it because this is the center of the county and the center of the city. And what's wonderful about this is this will kind of be kicking off another huge project that I'm working on the other end of downtown by Government Center. We have over 20 acres there of government-owned land, it's county-owned land. It's basically underutilized, a lot of empty lots, maybe a 3-story building, a 5-story building. You're going to see a visionary master plan come out of the county that we've been working on for about 1.5 years. And the idea is to basically greenfield the area and create an entirely new neighborhood that is centered on pedestrianism, having trees, putting a park in there, having affordable housing, and also better transit connectivity. Right now, we have our bus riders literally sitting out in the sun or sitting out in the rain. So it'll have a modern bus terminal. You'll arrive into Government Center on the same level. You can cross on the same level, the Metro Rail, Metro Mover, Brightline, Tri-Rail, in a seamless fashion. And that's probably a several billion-dollar project, and I'm working right now to get the RFPs out on that this summer. So we look forward to downtown becoming what it should have been and was 100 years ago, the heart and soul of Miami-Dade County.
Yes, and when you think about the Maurice Ferre's of the world, that said this is an area, and with that vision, I'm glad to see that's moving forward. Let's talk about affordable housing. When I tell people about affordable housing, they look at me, and there's a group that says, wonderful, and there's a whole other group that goes, not in my backyard. How do we find that balance in there?
Well, you could tell. Okay, for me, affordable housing is a crisis here, and I do build it in my backyard.
Yes.
So just letting you know, the reason I do is because our county builds incredibly gorgeous affordable housing. And for anyone that doesn't believe me, I suggest you accompany me to the site I'm working on in Little Havana. Or tour one of the buildings in downtown or Brickell that we are either building from scratch or renovating. You would want to live in these apartments. They're absolutely beautiful. And the other thing is this misnomer about affordable housing. Right now, the county is building affordable housing at all levels of income, very low, moderate, workforce. And all of the things that we're building now, at least in District 5, are mixed income. So what it means is we're creating these neighborhoods where opportunity exists. And for me, I'm making sure that they're getting built very close to transit. So for example, we have a building of mixed income housing right next to the Brickell train station. I guarantee you, no one knows that it's in their backyard. That's because the building is gorgeous. You walk into a gorgeous lobby, and when you're inside, there are people who work at all levels of income living in there just fine. I have another one that is in permitting now, which will be about 3 blocks from the Brickell train station. We just talked about the government center. That, again, I live downtown. That is in my backyard. So I think people would be pleasantly surprised that the new model of affordable housing is about respectful housing, beautiful housing, quality housing, safe housing. It is not the kinds of things that were built with HUD dollars, back in the 50s and 60s.
And since you happen to bring it up about HUD housing, about 700, 800 feet from here, the county owns about 50 old HUD townhouses. Related has a contract to take those down, reserve spots in the new building. There'd be 450-ish or so apartments. And it's going to be beautiful. I've seen the drawings on that. And they're going to have whoever has moved out, they have first option to move back in. Then they're going to sell 20 if you have to qualify. It's an income based, and then the rest are going to be market price and some work. What do they call it?
Workforce housing market rate.
So we are pleased. We've been here in this location for 50 years, and to see the changes with the county, that is going to make that part of the area, which is now right across the street from one of the most successful schools, all right, and hundreds of kids go there, and their parents are always here, and this is going to help really make South Miami beautiful. And it took a long time for the commissioners here over the years to say, okay, county, let's move with that. So my hat's off on doing that in your districts. Can we talk about the state recently passed a law that says you want to open a business in your home under certain criteria, you can do that. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I mean, I actually think that this is fine. And I think this year proved to many people that working from home can be both safer and effective and more cost effective. And I think the county, we have looked, last year, we looked at a number of items to make it easier for people to license their businesses, make sure they have a tax identification number, and make it seem as if it's not a crime to have a business in your home. Now, it depends on what kind of business you're having. Of course. We all know. But there's opportunities to be doing things. Now, at the same time, the county needs to make sure in residential neighborhoods and others that we don't have this kind of commercial traffic impinging on people's homes. But in general, people are working from home. We can pretend they're not, but they are.
And I think that's the big part that we say, okay, you're really not. But lawyers in particular, all right, I know a lawyer who was cited in the city of Miami because he was practicing his law out of his house. Thinking, what is wrong with that, right? And this certainly gives people a lot of opportunity to legalize it, to get that above the fray. You don't have to hide it. Of course, you have to qualify and do those things. And it's certainly an opportunity that people don't have to plan on spending $2,000 a month rent at a place, all right, and the expense of going there. So we hope that works out for everybody. And let's talk about there's certain identifications that the county is passing. Catch us up on that ID card.
Oh yeah, so this is a project that is near and dear to my heart, and I tried to pass it last year and failed. My colleagues didn't support me. Community IDs, for anyone that doesn't know, many other places around the United States are implementing them. They're an identification card that is basically about name and address. So it places you in the community, right? It's not a passport. It's not something that's going to get you on an airplane. But it can get you a library card. It can allow you to pick your children up from work. And there are many members of the community that don't have access to a driver's license. Obviously, the undocumented community is one, right? They just simply don't have access to IDs. Sometimes the transgender community, they're very uncomfortable having an ID marking their gender because of bias and risk of violence. There's also homeless folks, runaway youth. There's all kinds, and the elderly who no longer want a driver's license and they don't want to deal with the DMV. So we have a lot of need for the ID, and I wanted it. And it's interesting. I tried last February is when it died. And I brought it back because I knew we needed that last February. It was before the pandemic. Well, guess what? Once we started to have vaccines and testing, people needed an ID, and our undocumented population was shut out of vaccines and in the beginning, shut out of testing because they couldn't prove where they lived. It's a very simple, inexpensive way to do it. And I'm hoping this time we had good support at committee on the item. And it's interesting. I went from having community members wanting this to now the Archbishop is demanding it. We have Baptist Hospital demanding it. We have the CEO of Jackson. So now we have all these institutions, because of what happened with the vaccine fiasco, recognizing that it's important that our residents identify themselves.
And people want to feel comfortable with that.
Yes.
All right. And it's comforting. They're in a club. This is me. This is who I am, officer, or whoever it is.
Yes.
And so I get that. I mean, we carry, our purse wallets filled with stuff. What other ID do you have? And you go like this. All right. So let's talk about, by the way, congratulations on the county. And you headed this up, getting a whole bunch of money to Miami-Dade College last August.
Yes.
How much was that?
Well, with Miami-Dade College, what I worked on, because all the hotels were closed, and we had no idea when they were going to open. And we wanted to take the opportunity, and with the hotel industry, by the way, the hotel industry was a partner in this. While their people were furloughed, the hotel industry thought, wouldn't it be great to partner with Miami-Dade College on a program where these furloughed workers went to a program where they learned new skills and new opportunities so they could advance their professional development. So when our hotels did reopen, they would have perhaps higher paying job opportunities. And let me tell you, when I proposed this to Miami-Dade College, they were on it like this. They were so fast in implementing the program. It was a great partner. We were in the middle of a crisis, and it was great. The county was able to fund the money.
How much was it?
It was over $2.5 million for that program. And we were able to get, once they completed the course, that money went directly to the hospitality worker that attended the training. That was really vital.
That's great. Let's talk about some of the vaccines that sites that you help sponsor or co-sponsor. And you're looking back for the last year, all right? And looking forward concerning that.
Well, it was interesting. I was the person when we started doing vaccines and we were touting how well we were doing. I said, no. I want all the vaccine data by zip code, and I want it overlaid by income. And
let me guess what you found.
Well, yes, Pinecrest was doing very well. And so is Fisher Island.
How about that? We can name a few other spots too.
Who knew? And in the meantime, our Black neighborhoods, East Little Havana, were way, way behind. And to the mayor's credit and the whole administration and to the state and the Emergency Operations Center, they immediately pivoted to making sure we were delivering vaccines and reserving some of those vaccines for those neighbors and those neighborhoods that were most vulnerable. And we've caught up very quickly. We've caught up. We're not behind on vaccinating our Black community members. And then now we're able to target very pockets. So I have in East Little Havana, which is an interesting neighborhood because about half of the people that live there are non-citizens. Does not mean they're not documented, but they're in process. And as we know, for the past 4 years, we had a White House that terrified immigrants. If they were getting anything for free, they could be seen as a public charge. And even if they were an American citizen, it might affect grandma's green card application. And they've been very afraid of government services and health services. And so what I've done for the past month, we have had little pop-up sites all over East Little Havana. We're doing most of them in churches. And this way I'm able to work with the undocumented community because they know that ICE is not going to raid a church. So, I mean, they're not, thank God. But like, there's no risk. But in their minds, there's fear. So what we've done is we're letting groups of them come together. We're letting them bring their children, even if the children are too itty bitty to vaccinate. And then God bless and thank you. Our church community is coming together. They're opening their sanctuaries, and we're actually using our churches as vaccination sites. So, for the believers in the group, you also can pray that you don't get a reaction afterwards.
So one of the things that's become so apparent, and it's out of the closet, if you will, that there is this disparity that goes on throughout the world, and in particular for us here in Miami-Dade County. And as I explained to Congressman Maria Salazar, I said, I have white privilege, I get that, but I was not aware of that until a year and a half ago. This is just the way that it was. And when I see people that I know that don't have the same access that other people do, how they fall behind on that. So my hat's off to you and the county commission and to the state for making sure this gets done. Now, I understand the state is going to be pulling out their vaccination, going to leave it to the county.
I think actually we're ready for that. I think that is perfectly fine. We know where our residents are. We literally know by census tract where we're behind. And that is literally where we're moving these mobile vans. And we put up little sandwich board signs, vaccine here. We can knock on those doors. And by the end of the day, you've got 300 people in that neighborhood vaccinated. And depending on the vaccine, Pfizer, they come back to that same spot 3 weeks later. If it's Johnson & Johnson, I am finding with the undocumented residents, they like Johnson & Johnson. You know, I'm able to convince them to come once, but they're still a little afraid of coming twice.
I want to do a shout out to CHI, who really went out of their way, and they really did a really good job and provided access and comfort to people because they didn't want to have them go somewhere else. So my hat's off to the colonel there and that team down there. We're going to wrap up in a couple minutes. Is there something else you want to bring up? Because I want to ask you one last question at the end.
Well, the one thing that I think I'm working on now, which is very exciting, we had our first meeting last week, is the driver's license fines and fees task force. In our county, I mean, the number is just shocking. As of today, 630,000 people have had their driver's license suspended, which is somewhere between a third and a half of our drivers in Miami-Dade County. Okay, so this is what I consider a crisis.
I would say so.
And more than 90% of these people have lost their license for non-driving related offenses, right? So they're not bad drivers. They're not drunk drivers. They didn't run a red light. These are people that haven't been able to pay fines and fees. So sometimes it's parking tickets. Sometimes it could be tolls. Sometimes it could be you're driving and you aren't able to show your insurance. Sometimes it could be that you have some kind of a court fee. And we have a system here that you already can't pay the fines and fees. And then we just punish you more. Like they double, they triple, then you go to collection.
I think the same thing happened to the felons a while back.
Yes, exactly. So we do this. We have a horrible, horrible system where essentially we can drive people further into poverty through these fines and fees. And then we are forced by the state to take away their driver's license. Now, there's two things. Obviously, we need to ask the state to change that. But in the midst of this, we can make it easier for people to pay. We can make it easier for people to go to court. We don't do night court here, right? You got to take off from work. You got to pay $20 to park in downtown, right? You're already poor. And so this task force, Judge Leifman is helping me, the state attorney, public defender, the police, the head of the Dade Chiefs Police. So we have a great group. And the idea is to come up with some solutions that just makes people be able to have their license back. When you don't have a license, you can't drive to work. How are you going to support your family? And then if you do, you can't get insurance, which means the rest of us, we have 630,000 people who may still be driving. They cannot get insurance. Guess who pays for the extra insurance? That would be us. So it's a big problem. I'm excited to work on it. And we hope to have solutions proposed for the county, for the clerk, and also the court system by about October of this year. And then, of course, we'll have to march up to Tallahassee to ask them for some help, too.
Because everybody needs a break and a hand. So I'm glad you're doing that. It's certainly reaches deep to a lot of people, which is that cycle of poverty, of not being able to pay, which continues to make them poorer. So might be some 18-year-old or 20-year-old watching this right now and looking at you and saying, tell her to say, give me some words of wisdom about their future. So which cameras should she look into? This one right over here, right? Okay. You got about a minute, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay. So here's what I would tell you. What happened to me is I was mentored by other people. And every now and then I would be in a job or working on a project and someone would say to me, I think you'd be really good at this. And often it was something I'd never even thought about or imagined. But when someone you respect gives you that advice, listen deeply and thoughtfully and take the risk of learning how to do or experiencing what they're experiencing, or sometimes that means you enter into a different business segment or you get a different job, helps you grow. And so don't always rely on your own thoughts about who you can be and how you can work and what skills you have. Be sure to surround yourself with thoughtful mentors as you progress in life.
Tremendous. Thank you. And Miami-Dade County Commissioner Eileen Higgins is our guest today. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Hey, guys, thank you. And Howard, thank you for doing the show. And hello, audience over there. Oh, look who that is.
Look, we have an audience.
Hey, folks, have a great day. Thanks.